Welcome to another video. This will be a fairly short one, I think. I've just been sitting around thinking about self-isolation and about how I'm feeling. And I was thinking to myself, one of the reasons I started this channel was because I think there are too many social media influencers, personal development coaches, all this type of thing, who when we watch, it just looks like they're supermen and women. And whenever I see that, don't get me wrong, in my old life especially, it used to really inspire me and it used to drive me on. I used to think, yeah, that's something to go for. And in recent times, what I've realised is it's all bullshit, really. It's an act. And what you're seeing, which is what we see on most of social media, is the best of people. And that's great. Like, it's nice to see the best of people and it's nice to have something to aspire to. But the danger with that is it can make us all think that that's a goal that is achievable. Like this idea of perfection. We'll talk about perfection again in the future. But what I've realised is it's not. And as I'm going through this, and this might sound ironic, might seem like this is counterintuitive, but I'm filming these videos and I want to do whatever I can, just generally outside of coronavirus and pandemics and lockdowns, to help you to improve your life and to share the things I've learned. But the biggest thing I've learned, I think, is we need to share when it's not good, when you're not feeling great, because the most important thing is we're all humans. We've all got the same problems. We all have the same challenges, and the people who you see who can overcome those things, it's a case of, I remember watching Tony Robbins years ago, in fairness to him, and he was talking about a topic like this, and someone asked him, does he ever get angry anymore, or does he ever get pissed off? And he said, of course he does. What happens over time when you practice this sort of stuff is you get better at handling any negative experiences in your life. So whereas at one point you might get angry and you'd be angry for a month, as you practice all of the stuff that I've learned and that's on this path, you might get angry for a week, and then for a day, and then for an hour, and then sooner or later you can get it down to 10 minutes and you realise things are good. And the reason I'm saying all this is just the past day or so, I've started feeling little issues, little challenges with social isolation and the lockdown and all the rest of it. And I thought, well, if I want to achieve what I want to achieve with this channel and share the things I want to share, I should share that with you as well, and how I'm approaching that and how I'm dealing with it. So what I've noticed is, to give you a background of where I am, I'm completely by myself in a city centre apartment. So that was a choice I made when we knew we had to lock down. I thought, well, where will I be best? Basically, this is where I live. This is where all my stuff is. And I thought, I'd rather do that. I can get stuff done there. I can film videos. I can work on my channel. And I already knew, because I've learned this over the past couple of years actually. As I was growing up, I always thought there was perfection. Like, you could get to a place where everything was great. You lived in a perfect place. You were married to the perfect person. You had the perfect job, the perfect kids, the perfect friends. And what I've realised is that's just not true. And that dawned on me really when I went to Bali for 3 months at the beginning of 2019, and I realised that there, really, because Bali is what we'd probably all picture as paradise. It was full of incredible people, like-minded people who I had great conversations with and shared great moments with. There was adventures all the time. It was sunny. It was great. Just a lovely, lovely place. But you realise even then that there are things when you're there that you miss out on. So you miss your family. You miss your mates from home. You miss going to the pub and having a drink and with those types of people. You even miss when you're a lad like me from the background I'm from, you miss your mates taking the piss out of you. You miss people pulling you back down to earth. Loads of things. And it's the same in everything in life. So whenever I'm weighing things up now, I always think, well, there's pros and cons to everything. So there are times during this, obviously I'm by myself, where you'd like a bit of company, but then I look and think about mates and family who are with their partners, with their kids, and think, God, that must be difficult as well. So I think the first thing is for us all to acknowledge that no matter what your situation is watching this, there are challenges and there are pros and cons. There are advantages to whatever your setup currently is, and there are some things that aren't great. And so to give you sort of specific examples from my experience, I launched this channel, this podcast, YouTube stuff this week. Great, bit of a high, started getting subscribers, feel good, feel productive. I don't really like that word anymore, but a better word than productive is fulfilling. What I was doing, I felt fulfilling, which is really nice. And then that goes on. And actually what I found myself getting to places, I was busier than I've been before, because my lifestyle, I've joked with a few people. I saw someone on Twitter say, it's funny when you find out that your lifestyle's called quarantine. And it's not quite like that. But I already work from home. I'm already self-employed. So I already spend a fair amount of time on my own, and then have to sort of make physical interaction happen with humans, because I don't work in an office. I'm not in a relationship, so I don't see people all the time. So that side of things, I always thought it wouldn't be that much of a challenge anyway. But what I've noticed is I've been getting quite busy this week, and just yesterday I found that I hadn't slept well the night before for a couple of different reasons. A couple of different things were going on outside of where I lived, with relationships and things like that. But then also I was quite busy, so I ended up doing 5 hours pretty much back to back of FaceTime video calls for a coaching call with one of my coaches, and then videos for this and for the Anfield Wrap that I contribute to as well. And what I found was, I got to the end of that day, it was about 9:30, and I didn't feel good at all. I felt down. I felt drained, depressed. But a great thing that I read or heard years ago, which has stuck with me, and I think is brilliant, and I think in times like this, it's a really good tip. And forget times like this, it's good anyway. Someone said, when you think about it, I'm sure it was attributed to Bill Clinton, but that might be bullshit. You know, who knows where this stuff comes from. But someone said, think about when you've got a baby and a baby can't speak to you. So when they cry, you go through a checklist of what's wrong with them. So you change their nappy, you feed them, you wind them, you comfort them, you check whether they've slept, have they had enough sleep. All of these different things that when we've got a baby, that's what we do. It's almost natural reaction. That's what you do to nurture someone. But when we become adults, we forget all of those things. And the story I heard was that before any sort of major meeting, if it was Bill Clinton, let's say it was for the sake of argument, he would make sure that everybody before the meeting had been to the toilet, had something to eat, had something to drink, because the basics were covered then. Because what he didn't want to do was, in the middle of the meeting, while he's trying to talk about really important stuff, you're sitting there, and if you're anything like me, you'll know what this feels like, sitting there thinking, I need to go to the toilet, or God, I'm really hungry, or I really need a drink, because then you can't focus on what you're doing. And what I try and do now is apply the same things to my day-to-day life. So last night, as an example, I felt down and drained, and then I just took half an hour, and I literally got a pad and a pen and wrote down my day. What have I done? How did it feel? What was I doing? And what I realised was, I hadn't slept well the night before. I hadn't eaten properly all day because I got up and was chasing my tail because I knew I had stuff to do. So I didn't eat proper breakfast. I grabbed some food in between a couple of these calls, and then it got to 9:30 p.m. and I'd done 5 hours back-to-back calls. And actually, whereas in the past, what I'd start slipping into in that mindset is, I feel depressed. And by doing this sort of checklist, what you can actually quickly do to yourself is go, I'm not depressed, I'm just knackered, I'm just drained. And again, this is adapting to new environments as well. I don't think in my life, when I start, I'm only just thinking about this now, if I stop and think about it, I've never done 5 hours of video calls back to back. And what I realised, little learning experience, what I realised was, 5 hours of meetings in person or shows in person, recording things, it's completely different because you're bouncing off each other's energy. You've got physical presence of people in the room. You're interacting, you're having a laugh. Video calls are very different to that, I think. Don't get me wrong, in where we are right now, in March 2020, get as many video calls in as you can to connect with other humans face to face. I think it's, especially if you're by yourself, if you're sitting on your own in isolation and lockdown. But it's not the same as being in the room with someone, as we all know. And what I found was it really drained me. Like it properly, if you think about, if you've watched my origin video, I talk about in the long version, or one of them, batteries, rechargeable batteries. I felt really drained, like my entire battery had been drained. But by going to bed and writing about it and then getting something to eat, I could identify it and acknowledge it and go, okay, do you know what? You don't need to start going into a story that you're feeling depressed, that you're feeling down. You can just say, I was hungry, I was tired. The other thing I'd realised is I hadn't been outside for 2 days. I hadn't left my flat for 2 days to go for a walk or do any exercise. So then I was like, okay, these are all things I need to do. Get up the next day, sleep properly, wake up, spend some time to yourself. So rather than booking loads of video calls again, make sure I've got a bit of time today. For the first time in days, actually, we've not talked about this yet, but I enjoy meditating. I don't do it as much as I could, but I tend to do it as I want to, really. But I think this week I've not done any, and it would really help. So this morning I meditated. I made sure I had breakfast straight away, so I would start my day with good food. And then started to do a few things, listen to some positive music, got a shower, got ready. Something that made me laugh, actually, I realised it's funny how things change, isn't it? We're all going through this debate of what you wear when you get up in the day. I'm in tracksuits now. But I've sort of gone from thinking about, well, if I get up and I put jeans on, that means I'm getting dressed properly. And if I put trackies on, it means I'm having a lazy day. Because in my head, it was like, well, if I put jeans on, I might go outside or I might do some filming. And then I got to the point where I was like, no, I can still go outside in my trackies, or I can do some filming in my trackies. And what I realised was the differentiator for me now is whether I put boxies on, whether I've got underwear on. Because when I think I'm going to stay in all day, I don't bother with underwear. What's the point? It's just like wearing your pyjamas, isn't it? And I woke up this morning and thought, I'm putting underwear on because I'm going to go outside and I don't like going outside without underwear on. So even little things like that, little tips, little things to keep a note of. And today I felt a bit better, but still, it felt a little bit unbalanced, still felt a little bit down. So it's the same process again. Even this helps me talk about it out loud, makes me feel a bit better, talk it through. And I keep coming back to the same thing actually on all of this is, wherever you look, if you look online for tips on how to survive this, you will usually see in anything 2 camps. The black and white thinking in our society is awful. And again, I know this will be one of my catchphrases. We'll talk about this on a future video, definitely. Some people say you've got to be really productive. You want to come through this and be able to play the guitar, speak French, speak Spanish, be able to cook. You would see all these people baking bread. I should be able to bake bread by now. And then you've got the other people who say, don't do any of that. Just stay in bed and watch Netflix. Just laze around, get through the days. And here's my take on it. And again, it doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean any of those people are wrong. But this is my take on it. We're all different. We've got lots of things in common, but we're all different. We all like different things. You're going to be up and down. You're going to be living in challenging environments. It's tough. So the main thing is, no matter what, be kind to yourself. This is an ongoing challenge for me. Don't beat yourself up. Don't tell yourself you're doing things wrong. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. What everybody else is doing is none of our business. It's about what your people around you are doing. How do you feel inside? Be kind. If you feel like on a day you don't want to do anything, you want to stay in bed and watch TV, and you can do that, do it. Don't beat yourself up. If you feel like you want to pick up the guitar and play some songs, do that. Every day, every hour, just be aware of how you feel. Communicate. If you're living with people, really important you communicate this stuff rather than burying it and letting things build up. And I know what that feels like. I know it's tough. It must be challenging. I do have a lot of sympathy for anybody who's sort of in a lockdown environment with kids, with partners, because you're not only dealing with your own emotions, you're dealing with theirs as well, and that can be difficult. So what I would say if you're in that situation is think of the advantages of being there. So really, really sort of double down on that side of things. If you've got kids around, you've got your partner around you, what you've got that I haven't got, for example, is the ability to give people a hug, to sit down, to cuddle up on the couch, watch a funny movie together, laugh and joke together, play games together. Because you've also got disadvantages that I don't have, in that you've got to deal with each other. You've got to deal with living on top of each other for this time. You've got to deal with each other's moods, each other's emotions. That's tough. So you've got to make sure, I think it's important to make sure you're taking the advantages from that. So same for me, flip it on its head. If you're like me and by yourself during this period, make sure you're taking the advantages of those things, which are, you can do what you want. You don't have to worry about anybody else's emotions. You don't need to worry about anybody else's well-being in your immediate environment. So you can, to a certain extent, if you want to sleep in, sleep in. If you want to go back to bed in the middle of the afternoon, go back to the bed in the middle of the afternoon. Make sure you're checking in with other people. Make sure that you're connecting. There's a great quote I put up on my Instagram account a couple of days ago. It's from the film Green Book. And it says, the world is full of lonely people waiting for other people to make the first move. So that's the other thing I'd say is, if you're feeling lonely at all, and look, being lonely is not just about being by yourself. I know what it feels like to be very lonely inside a relationship or being around other people. If you're feeling lonely, don't wait for other people to make the first move. Do it yourself. I promise you, it'll make you feel better. But it always comes back to this thing of being kind to yourself. That is my number one tip. And this is a perfect example of me saying, one of the reasons of doing this is, as you teach, you learn as well. It's a reminder for me. I have to constantly remind myself of this. Be kind to yourself. I write things on post-it notes, stick them to my fridge. Write it down, think about it every day. Set a reminder in your phone. Every day, think, be kind to yourself. Am I being kind to myself? That's the number one thing. You may have, if you're into the personal development world, you may have heard of this before. I think it's become a bit of a cliche, but lots of people haven't heard it apparently. So there's a great story about, or an example of, if you think about when you're on a plane, when you're on a flight, when they go through the safety procedure that no one really listens to anymore, when they talk about the oxygen masks coming down, they say, if that happens, put your own oxygen mask on first before you help anyone else. And there's a good reason for that. It's because if you try and help your kids first, or your family, your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your mum, your dad, whoever, if you try and do all of theirs first and not yours, you'll die. And you can't help anyone else once you've died. And that's the point of this, is that you've got to, and there's balance in this as well. You can't just be a selfish arsehole. The caveat of don't be a bell end, we'll talk about that as well. But if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after the other people around you. I've spent too many years of my life where I've realised I was just trying to look after everybody else, and it didn't work because I was so fucked. I couldn't possibly help other people. So it was just a vicious cycle, because then you feel bad because you can't help other people. Whereas once you look after yourself first, and I know it sounds selfish and it's counterintuitive, but if you can look after your own well-being first and foremost every day, you will be much better placed to help the people around you. So if you're living with people, you will be better placed to look after your kids, to help your kids. You'd be better placed to help your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. You'd be better placed to reach out to other people and help them, because you'll feel good inside you. But you've got to start with being kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Make sure you're okay. Make sure if you're feeling down, think about yourself being a baby. Have you slept? Have you eaten? Have you been for a shit? Have you had a drink? Are you hydrated? All of these things. Have you done some exercise? Have you listened to some good music? Are you taking in too much social media? I've done that the past couple of days when I stop and think. Too much time on social media, you get sucked into a hole. It tends to not be good stuff. Try and change that. Try and only check social media once or twice a day. Same with the news. You don't really need to watch the news anymore, I don't think, really. We all know where we are until I'm actually thinking about not watching any news and just asking someone to let me know once the lockdown is going to end, because that's all we need to know now. We know what we're meant to be doing. We don't need to know anything else. And that's it. Go through those steps. Make sure you're being kind to yourself. I'm going to finish this video and take my own advice, and I'm going to go outside for a walk, make a phone call to someone, get some fresh air, get some gentle exercise. That's what this is all about. Be kind. Take care of yourself. If you have any questions, if you've got any challenges, any issues that you think you want to ask me, I'm more than happy to answer them. I'm going to probably start doing a question and answer show every week if I can, if there are enough questions. A few have come in already, so subject to people being happy me sharing their questions publicly, I'll go through them once a week and we'll talk about them on a show. I may even, I'm thinking about if you might be interested, or if someone you know might be interested, doing a recorded Skype call to just run through some things. So if you want to have an actual call with me and we can run through them, more than happy to do that. I think that could be really useful for people, because something you'll realise is when you share stuff, if you've got a question, if you've got something you're struggling with, loads of other people will as well. So by you asking the question and me helping answer that and trying to sort of work it out, be helping lots of other people. So if that does apply to you, feel free to get in touch with me. You can get in touch via the website, paul7cope.com. If you've subscribed to my mailing list, you will get an email at the end of every week. You can reply to that, or contact me through the YouTube comments or social media at paul7cope. If you like this stuff, I would ask you to do one thing actually, and that's it. You don't need to share it on social media. You don't need to do any of that. That's up to you entirely. But if you do like it, if it has helped you in any way, or if it is helping you in any way, what I'd suggest is, if you can think of one other person in your life who you think it might help, rather than sharing it on Twitter or Facebook, send it to that person and say, I think this might help you. That's it. Because ultimately, I think that's the best way of us helping each other, is if I can help one person, and that's you, and you can help one other person, and they can help one other person, all of a sudden, we've sorted everybody. You know, it's viral growth of help, reaching out and helping each other. So that's the only ask I've got for you. If you are enjoying this, if these things do help, I hope that has helped. I hope it has been a little bit interesting, a bit of an insight into how I'm thinking about all of this. I'm going to go away and have a walk now and think about the rest of the videos for next week. See you soon.